Hey, as a local service provider, you know how important your database is to your business. I call it the lifeblood of really of any service-based business. And so, well, if you'll stick with me over the next like 5 or 6 minutes, I'm going to share with you a a script or an easier way to add people to your database than maybe that you've been using so far. So, if you don't know me, I'm Bill Utnage, and I'm the author of the Amazon best-selling book, Referability Roadmap, and I help local service-based businesses grow their businesses by helping them to generate more referrals. And so, when we start talking about our database, one of the things that we know is the more people that know what we do, how we do it, why we do it, the more opportunities that we have. And a lot of the times is like, we're always going to put, our people, our current, our past clients, depending on what industry that you're in, our sphere of influence, our network, right? All of those people inside of our database. But what we want to also make sure that we're doing is that we're adding new people to our database daily. My goal of it always with my clients is like, hey, we want to be adding at least one new person to our database every day, right? Monday through Friday, right? And if you're doing that on the weekends, that's awesome, and that's a bonus. But one of the challenges that comes along with that is actually doing that, because when you hear it said, you're like, oh, well, it's only one a day. I could easily do that. Well, what you find is that that's not always as easy as it sounds, and we have to be purposeful in doing that. And so this is why being face to face, being around people, being in conversations, as a service-based business owner, right? We're in sales, right? That's kind of what we do. And I always say that, sales it's a contact sport. So we have to be talking with people, right? Having conversations, whether that's on the phone, that's via Zoom, via whatever that may look like, but and having that engagement. And so many times what I find is that we overlook and we miss opportunities to be adding people to our database without being, kind of like awkward and weird, doing that by saying, hi, hey, do you want to be on my mailing list? Well, no one really ever wants to be on a mailing list. But if we come from a place of value, then it starts to look different. And one of the ways that I have found, and years ago, and then I learned this from one of my mentors, Brian Buffini, and Brian, has he uses it is called, it's the Mayor campaign, and that's what he calls his script. And over the course of years, what I is kind of I've changed that to kind of adapt it a little bit differently. Is that is a way to really to get people to want to really connect with you and give you permission to stay in contact with them. And so I'll walk through that with you. And this is something that you can use pretty much anywhere, right? So if you're at a networking event, whether it's chamber, it's you're at your kids, soccer game, baseball game, and you're talking with maybe other parents around you, and the conversation comes up as it normally does in a conversation, right? Is, hey, so hey, what do you do? And that type of thing. And so many times is that we're eager to like to we'll share about what we do, but then the issue is like we leave those people and they're just like, hey, there was an opportunity there that we didn't take advantage of. And that's why by using this simple, what I call the database addition script, right, or dialogue, whatever that you want to call it, because some people, right, we have this thing around like, well, I don't like to use scripts, right? Anyone that is does anything at a high level inside of sales uses scripts and dialogues to be able to handle objections and know how to have a conversation versus just winging it. That's just the way that works. That's what the ones that are at the high level, that's what they do. They know what to say and when to say it. So in this case, for example, so let's just say you're at a networking event, because most everyone that's a service-based business is going to be involved in either in being in a local networking group organization or being part of a chamber or whatever that may look like. And so as you're in conversation with someone, is again, and not to don't vomit up your whole business on them and try to convert them and sell them, from day one. No one likes that, so don't do that. But the thing about it is, what you can do is to start, as you're having a conversation with someone, and just ask them and just say, hey. And I'll just use real estate for an example. Let's just say that I'm a real estate agent, and I'm in a conversation with someone, and I'm like, hey, if you had a question about real estate, or you had a friend or a family member that did, hey, do you have a trusted real estate agent that you could ask questions of? And the thing about this is that why I like this is that it's not like, hey, if you're thinking about, if you were thinking about buying, and this could work too, right? This script works because that's part really the original Merit campaign. Is if you're thinking about buying or selling real estate, or you had a friend or a family member that was going to, hey, do you have a real estate agent that you could refer to? That can work as well. What I found though is if we can eliminate any kind of other obstacle or friction in that conversation, because the key piece of it is like people like going, yeah, I really can't think of anybody that I'm not thinking about buying or selling or whatever, right? It becomes too much. But if we come back to the question, because here's the thing, everything starts with a conversation. Right? Just think about anyone that my wife, who I've been married to going on 32 years, that all started with a conversation. It wasn't like I just like all of a sudden, poof, we're married and all of that. There was a conversation there. Every sales encounter that we have it starts with a conversation. And so the key piece of that is if I can get into conversation with someone, right, then that's going to open up an opportunity, a possible opportunity. If I don't get into a conversation with one, that 100% of the time, that's not going to happen, right? If I don't ever talk to someone, the chances of them doing business with me because they don't know me, they don't know anything about what I do, why I do it, and how I do it, then it doesn't happen. This is why building that database is so important, because then now we're building this. We have people that have given us permission. So in this case, if I ask someone and they're like, no, actually, I don't. Like, hey, well, I'd love to be that resource for you. So when you do have a question, or someone that does have a question, because there's a lot of misinformation in the world, especially online and all of those things. I'm actively active in the in the market, and I'd love to be a resource for that. And from time to time, I send out information that my clients find valuable. And would it be okay if I included you on that? Okay. So there's a kind of a two-step piece of that. And then 99% of the time, people are going to go, yeah, sure, that's great. And then we're like, oh, hey, so, and then get their contact information. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you is that most of the time that people are going to give you their business card normally, because that's the easiest thing they have. They're like, yeah, hey, here's a copy. Here's my business card. So they're going to give it to you. One of the things that I'm going to have you like really focus on and slow down to make this effective is when you get the card is to look at the card. And because there's going to be their name, obviously their email address and telephone number. Typically, those are going to be on there. What's typically not on business cards anymore, and I think of my own, right? So here's one of my business. Here's a business card of mine, right, for my business. There's my name, there's my telephone number and my email address. But I don't have a mailing address on there, and a lot of people don't anymore because, for example, I have a home office, and so. It's my home. I don't put my mailing address on there. Not that it's a secret. I just don't do that. And so the key piece we want to make sure that we do is, and if it's not on there, ask them. It's like, hey, if I was going to send you something in the mail, what would be the best address to send that to you? Because here's why. If you've been around me for even a minute, my belief in sending people personal notes, right? Handwritten notes, right? I always have them with me and by me. Is to send that out, because what we want to do is when we meet somebody and they're like, hey, I kind of had some synergy with this person, is we want to send them a note, and then that works. And we go into the, connecting with them and all of that. That's a whole other training that I have done, and you can access that. But what we want to make sure and we want to do with that is we get it. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I don't have a pen. I don't have anything to write on. You don't need to. You have this, right? You have a phone, and you'll 99.9% of the time you're going to have that phone with you. Is just open up your notes app. Every phone has whether it's Apple, whether it's Android, have a notebook or notes app on there, or just hit, if you're on I'm an Android guy, so I just hit my assistant, and then I can just voice it in whatever address that they tell me, or type it in, right? So I have that piece of it, because this is a key piece that's a lot of people miss. So a lot of people will get, like, they'll get the permission to add them to it, and they'll do it, but they don't get the mailing address, and then we're trying to scramble around, try to find that, because what's going to set you apart after you meet with these people is writing them that note. And they get that note in the mail, and they're just like, oh, wow. Hey, that was different. It sets you apart from that part of it. That's a key piece inside of all that. Now, let's just say that I asked them that question, hey, if you're thinking about, if you had a question about real estate, or you had a friend or a family member that did, do you have a trusted real estate advisor or agent that you could ask of? Yeah, I do. My wife's actually, a real estate agent with XYZ company. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. It's glad that you have, that you got somebody that you can turn to on that. That's it. Right. I mean, because you're not going to come in between that relationship, more than likely. Now, let's just say it's somebody that's not that it's not a family member. It's like, yeah, I have I've got an agent that, that I've used in the past. Like, awesome, great, glad that you've got a relationship with somebody. Hey, if something ever happens with that relationship, then hey, I'd love to, to be a resource for you, and just move on, right? Like I always say, there's 8 billion people in the world. I don't need them all, and I'm not going to get them all. So let's just move on. But most of the time, people are kind of go, no, because here's the thing: people probably aren't staying in contact with them, especially on the real estate side, or probably on the mortgage side of that, right? So by using that, by having that script, it's an easy, because I'm just, they're giving me permission, right? And I'm just saying, it's like, hey, from time to time, and this is why we have to set up our 36 Connect system, is like, from the time if we're going to send out direct mail or an email to someone, right, bringing value. What I always say is, I'm either helping someone solve a problem or making their life easier or better. And there's where it separates you from, from everyone else. But the key piece of this is that we have to get them into our database. And I want to get them in there with their permission. So if I just ask them this question, if I want to be a resource for them, and they're like, yeah, that would be great. And hey, so from time to time, I send out this information. Now, here's the thing. If you tell them that you're going to do that, well, then do it. Right? Don't be like everyone else. Say, you're going to do that, and then you don't. This is why it's so important. Like right away, if in the next day or the next couple of days, they get a note from me, they're like going, oh, wow. Hey, Jason, it was awesome meeting you. I really enjoyed hearing about your business, and, looking forward to us, connecting at a future chamber event, or whatever that is. Right. And then you can, and it's cool. I have nothing wrong with putting your business card in on a situation, like that. And then the key piece of it is to follow up, is then maybe like, hey, you want to grab coffee. And then this is how we start, if there's some synergy and building a relationship, we put them into our, obviously. So then they go into our database. And as you know, is how I structure it, is, that they would go in what we call in our C category, because these are somebody that we've met, they've not done business with us, or they've not referred us. And then here's how we connect with them, and then we're building that relationship, and it's just someone that we just add into that. And this is how, and then eventually when they send us business, or they do business with us, right? Then we're moving them through kind of the conveyor belt that I talk about. Is like, hey, they went from a C, if someone in our C category, now they're a client, or they've referred us. Now we move them into what we call, our B clients, and then moving them to our A's. And when we have a system and a structure of doing it, but so many times, and I see this all the time. I mean, I see, where, people, I'm at networking events, and I'm talking with people that just, will talk with me, and then they don't ask me that, that question, where if I didn't have someone, I might not have. And this, to be honest with you, I work with, with primarily, real estate, mortgage, insurance, and financial services. But to be honest, this works in any like service industry, whether it's roofing or HVAC or plumbing or whatever. Hey, if you had a question around, a plumbing issue, right? Do you have a trusted plumber that you could connect with? And most people are going to be like, no, I don't. Like, hey, I'd like to be a resource for you. right? This will work. I can take this just about through any industry and make this script of this dialogue work, and then to get people kind of going, wow, yeah, if I just got a question, because I'm not selling them, right? They're like, I'm just like, hey, if you got a question about it, I just want to be a resource. So you can reach out to me. I can answer your questions, either you or a friend or a family member, and to be able to do that. So you see how that barrier of entry drops down. We're always, I talk about, friction in anything that we do. The less friction that I can have in making a connection with somebody, if I got to make them jump through a bunch of hoops and do things and whatever, then it's like, it's more than likely that's not going to happen. But if it's like, hey, I'm I'm having a good conversation, feel like that they may be, maybe a good fit if I can, somehow can support them, as well. And that's how that relationship is built. It started with that conversation, and then it leads to further conversations down the road. So if you're struggling with adding people, because the key piece of this is that a lot of times, and that we just, we'll get, people will come and do business with us. So we put in our current clients, and, if you're in real estate and mortgage, you hear me, you understand, it's like when we hear me talk about past clients, if you're in financial services or you're in insurance, because if they're a past client, usually they've left you and they've moved on to someone else. Where in real estate, where in mortgage, it's transactional. It isn't like people are buying houses, with you every month. Now, some might, right, or selling if they're an investor or something like that. But most of the time, it's transactional. So that's where you hear me talk about, as I came out of the real estate world, is we talk about those past clients. And even though they're a past client, to me, I always look at it as I want clients for life. Yes, they may have bought or sold a home through me, but at the end of the day is that they've done business with me. So I want to stay connected with them because, right, on average, they're going to know 250 people. And so if I built this relationship, I stay in contact with them, then the likelihood of them referring me becomes much, much higher. And especially if I know how to ask for a referral, which is a whole other script, that I teach on, too as well. But for today, what I want you to be looking at is like, am I adding to my debt? And do I have an easy way to do that? Do I have it? And if you do, that's awesome. If it's working for you, whatever you're using, that's great. But if you're struggling, get this. I'll just comment database in the comments under the video, wherever you're consuming this, whether this is Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, or wherever, right? And I'll get you a copy of this that you can start using. The only thing I ask that you do is you use it. If you're going to ask me for it, I'm going to send it to you. Is use it, test it, see if it works, and internalize it. Right? I don't have the script in front of me anywhere. I know it. So if you're thinking about, hey, if you had a question about insurance, or you had a friend or a family member that did, do you have a trusted insurance advisor or agent that you could ask those questions of? If you had a question around the stock market, right? And so you internalize that, because then it becomes, right, just natural. Like, hey, I'd love to be a resource for you. And then where you can go, well, it's like, hey, I'm active in the market full-time as a financial advisor, as a full-time insurance, agent. So there is, as we all know, there's a lot of misinformation in the world, especially online, right? And so having some way that they can connect with, going, hey, this person they seem normal, nice enough. They're willing to ask questions of, and then that's where that comes. And then we build it out from there. So get the script, right? Use it, start adding people to your database, because the key piece of this is that again, how I started this, the more people that know what you do, how you do it, why you do it, the more opportunities that you're going to have. If I have somebody that has a database of 100 people, okay, or I have a database of people that have 1,000 people, which one is likely going to have more opportunities? Well, it's not rocket science. It's the one that's going to have 1,000 in there. And especially, again, not a list that I went and bought an email list, because our database is not a mailing list. We can use it out of that. Our database, I want you to be always thinking about your database, is it's a relationship list. These are people in my world of what I teach, is these are people that have either they have done business with you, right? Have referred you, or they know you. right? It isn't like we're like, if I called these people and they were like, now, who is this again? Right. I have to explain who these people are, or they don't know anything about me, right? I'm not talking about cold lists. But so as we build those and we build those relationships, this is why it's so important as we grow that database, because on average, okay, everyone knows 250 people on average. A lot of people know a lot more, right? Some, I would say, not that much less, and that number's probably become higher now. But on average of that, so if you take even a database of 100 people that already know, like, and trust you, there's a potential reach of 2,500, right? If we take 100 times 250, I think that's 2,500 if my math is correct. So this is why it's so important. If I have 1,000 in my database, right, that gives us a reach of potential 25,000 people. I don't got to market to 25,000 people, but if I stay in contact and bring value, right, to these people, know how to ask and when to ask, then that's how I can help. That's how I can build more of consistent referrals, because that's the misconception, the total misconception I always run into when I talk about what I do for people. And they're like, oh, yeah. I get referrals. Well, there's a difference between getting referrals and being able to know how to generate referrals, because getting is just haphazardly. It's like, once in a while, hey, I got one, right? I always say a broke clock is right twice a day. Okay. So what we want to do is be in a position, if we build a system and we have this, is that we're able to, in a sense, know, like, hey, and I know when I was running our real estate business, is that we knew for about every 8 to 10 people that were in our database, that was going to lead to one closed transaction. So at 1,000 people, we knew that we were going to do a minimum of 100 deals a year. And we did over year. And so the key piece was like, okay, how do we increase that? Well, we increase the number of people that we put in, but making sure, right, that we're connecting with them and we're doing all the right things. But everything starts with the person. It starts with that conversation. That's it. Okay. We can't get to the closed transaction, get to the business without having a conversation, with them and to building that value, goodwill, whatever however you want to term that. So that's what I've got for you in today's training, in today's video. Grab a copy of it. Just comment database down below. I'll get it over to you. Make sure you use it. Okay. Make sure you use it. And let me know. I always love when I get feedback from people, like going, hey, I use this thing and it worked. People are like, yeah, I don't have anybody. I'd be happy to do that. Right. Permission-based marketing, in a sense, is where they're giving us permission, and then we can market to them. Just builds a much better relationship. No one wants to be spammed and all of that stuff. We all get bombarded with all that. But if someone gives me their permission and their contact information, then hey, it's awesome, right? It's a great way to do business. So what I got for you guys today. As always, hey, thank you for watching. And if there's anything that I